The painting, The Family of Henry VIII, was made around 1572 by Lucas de Heer using oil on panel technique. From the artistic point of view, the painting was made in a Renaissance period, as you can tell from characters' clothes, and it's in the style of a 16th century Dutch school. The perspective is geometric. We can consider the pattern rung on the floor, whose vanishing point is backside of the throne. This portrait is full of symbolisms, on which there's the figure of peace, plenty and Mars, are also the background view past the pillars on the left of the painting that represents Palace of Whitehall, the monarch's residence. The painting is considered an allegory of the Tudor succession. In fact, the characters are Henry VIII, his 3 children and Queen Mary's husband, Philip of Spain. Harry sits on his throne in the centre, with his son Edward VI kneeling beside him, receiving the sword of justice. Before talking about the characters, we'll explain that the House of Tudor got the power, thanks to the Wars of the Roses. The Wars of the Roses were a series of civil wars fought from 1455 to 1485 between the House of Lancaster and the House of York. The name Wars of the Roses is based on the symbols of the two families. The House of York had a white rose as its symbol, while the House of Lancaster had a red one. The civil war ended when Richard III, the last Yorkist king, was defeated in the Battle of Bosworth in 1485 by the Lancastrian Henry VII Tudor. Henry married Elizabeth of York, thus uniting the two roses, and became King of England, founding the House of Tudor. Henry VIII was the second king of Tudor's dynasty, and he succeeded his father, Henry VII, in 1509. Married 6 times and held over uncontested absolute power, he strongly marks the English stories. Firstly, he was opposite to Luther's theory, so he got the title of Defender of the Faith from Pope Leon X. Secondly, he asked the Pope to declare his first marriage invalid, as Catherine had given him a daughter, Mary, but the Pope refused. So the king broke up with Rome, divorced and married Anne Boleyn, and gave birth to Elizabeth. Henry founded an Anglican church, therefore he was considered heretical. In addition, he decreed the break of monasteries and the union of England with Wales. Henry died in 1547, and was succeeded by Edward VI. For more than a quarter of a century, King Henry VIII had desperately wanted a son, and Edward's birth caused a great rejoicing. Edward was only 9 years old when his father died. He was precocious, studying history and Protestant theology. During Edward's reign, as a consequence of the Protestant Reformation, religious services were held in English instead of Latin. This helped develop the English language. In 1553, the young king died from consumption. Without children, he was only 15 years old. He had named a Protestant cousin, Lady Jane Grey, as his successor, but she was taken prisoner thanks to a Catholic plot, so Mary declared herself queen. Mary I is shown next to Philip with Mars, god of war, behind them, symbolizing the wars they fought. Mary was the only child of King Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon to survive into adulthood. Mary declared herself queen in 1553 and wanted to restore Catholicism in England, reigning as the first Queen of England and Ireland. 1 year later, she married Philip II of Spain, and this made England an ally of Spain against France. During her kingdom, she persecuted hundreds of Protestants by burning them at the stake, so she earned the moniker Bloody Mary. Afterwards, she began to introduce legislation that she had locked up for. First, there was an act with little resistance that proclaimed Henry VIII's marriage to Catherine valid and legal. However, the other main act was to repeal other religious laws passed in the reign of Edward VI, and this didn't pass as easily. Mary died in 1558 after leaving the throne to her sister Elizabeth. Elizabeth I in the painting stands on the right of the picture, holding the hand of peace, who treads the sword of discord underfoot, as many attend her with abundance. This represents her role as a bringer of peace and prosperity to the realm. The background view past the pillars on the left of the painting is thought to represent the Palace of Whitehall, the main residence of the English and British monarchy between 1530 and 1698, when it was destroyed by fire. Queen Elizabeth I was born to King Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn on September 7, 1533. Due to the question of the legality of the king's annulment of his marriage to Catherine of Aragon, The birth of Elizabeth was considered illegitimate. Under the guidance of Henry's sixth wife, Catherine Parr, Elizabeth received a tremendous amount of education, which was quite unusual for women during that time. After her father's death, Elizabeth became third in line to the throne after her 10-year-old half-brother Edward and half-sister Mary. When Edward became ill and later died, a cousin, Lady Jane Grey, took the throne. Her rule lasted only 9 days until Mary overthrew her. Under Mary's rule, England was restored to Catholicism, while Elizabeth remained secretly at least Protestant. In 1558, Mary died and Elizabeth became queen. Elizabeth quickly consolidated power and returned the country to Protestantism. With the help of able advisors, she ruled the country ably and initiated an era of economic prosperity. In international affairs, Elizabeth manipulated the princes of Europe, using the prospect of marriage to her as a bargaining tool. Indeed, preferring the power that came with the perpetual eligibility, she ultimately never married at all. She was, however, involved in a scandalous romance with Robert Dudley, her master of the horse. Because Elizabeth was both husbandless and childless, to overthrow her would be to gain immediate control of the throne. Following Mary's beheading, Philip II of Spain, Catholic and enraged by Sir Francis Drake's constant plundering of Spanish colonies, decided it would stand for an attack. In 1588, he launched his invincible Spanish Armada to fetch his armies fighting in the Netherlands and transport them to England. The Armada was defeated by the skillful maneuvers of the English fleet and was further debilitated by the stormy weather. England was saved from the Spanish threat, establishing the roots of a long tradition of English naval dominance. Elizabeth was a patron of the arts, and she died as a virgin queen in 1603, having made clear that her successor would be James I, son of Mary Queen of Scots. Elizabeth's gown is embroidered with English wildflowers, thus allowing the Queen to pose in the guise of Astra, the virgin heroine of classical literature. Her cloak is decorated with eyes and ears, implying that she sees and hears all. Her headdress is decorated lavishly with pearls and rubies and supports a royal crown. The pearls symbolize her virginity, the crown, of course, symbolizes her royalty. Above her crown is a crescent-shaped jewel which alludes to Cynthia, the goddess of the moon. A jeweled serpent is entwined along her left arm and holds from its mouth a heart-shaped ruby, and above its head is a celestial sphere. The serpent symbolizes wisdom. It has captured the ruby, which in turn symbolizes the Queen's heart. In other words, the Queen's passions are controlled by her wisdom. The celestial sphere echoes this theme. It symbolizes wisdom and the Queen's royal command over nature. Elizabeth's right hand holds a rainbow with a Latin inscription Non sine sole iris, no rainbow without the sun. The rainbow symbolizes peace, and the inscription reminds viewers that only the Queen's wisdom can ensure peace and prosperity. Elizabeth was in her late 60s when this portrait was made, but for iconographic purposes, she is portrayed as young and beautiful. This is a copy of the portrait made to commemorate Elizabeth's accession in 1558. It is a stunning and beautiful image. Elizabeth is lavishly dressed and also the traditional auburn scepter. Her hair is loose, as befits her married state, and its color is particularly striking against the white of her skin. And, once again, Elizabeth's much-admired hands are prominently displayed as they rest upon the symbols of her authority. Carried out around 1588, the painting celebrates England's victory over the Invincible Armada. Spanish ships are pictured on the background, on the Queen's right, under the menace of English vessels. Elizabeth's effigy is defined by 2 columns, which resemble the imperial deeds of Karl V, linked to the 2 pillars of Hercules that ancestors believed to mark the world's borders. The 2 buttressed frames take place in the first case under a cloudy and turbulent sky, in the second case under sunshine. Queen Elizabeth turns her back to the turbulence and looks at the limpid sky to sense that, after having kept Spanish menace under control, England will run into a bright and pleasant future under the Queen's guidance. As we can see in other paintings, imperial symbols gain remarkable importance. Elizabeth's body is heavily stylized, flattened under the weight of her jewels and brocades, whilst the general composition is led by geometric forms. This is part of a constant abstraction process aiming to divinize her figure.